Kevin Coughlin is running for U.S. Congress to represent Ohio's 13th Congressional District, former member of the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House. Kevin is joining me now on the Scott Sand Show. Kevin, thanks for your time. It's great to have you back on.
Thank you, Scott. Good to be back.
So before we get into a few things, I know you're a BG grad, a graduate of BGSU. Have you heard the controversy that's happening up here around the Battle of I-75 today?
I have not.
So your thoughts on this? It looks like you played football. Did you play ball at BGSU?
No, I actually went there to run cross country and track, which I...
Not that I'm looking at your body or anything, but I thought you might be an athlete. But
yeah, I guess today I look like a football player. Back then I looked like a runner.
So the Battle of I-75 is in the Glass Bowl up here in Toledo in a couple of weeks, and UT today said that the Falcon Marching Band would not be allowed to play at halftime, which has kind of been the tradition that both bands play at halftime of this game. And I think the BG Band rightfully is a little upset about it.
Well, these are the issues we really need to get Congress focused on.
I think so. We need to settle important debates like that. I mean, it is football season. How were the Falcons when you were there at BGSU?
Well, they were pretty good. We had I can't remember if it was near the end of my time there or just after I left, Gary Blackney era, and so they went out to the Las Vegas Bowl one year, and I believe won that. So they had some pretty good years.
Yeah. KevinCoughlin.com is the website. Kevin's running for Congress in the 13th District, which is the area around Akron and down to North Canton, a little bit farther north into, I believe, into Cuyahoga County, correct?
No, we actually go east into Portage County a little bit. So it's all Summit County, most of Stark County, and a little bit of Portage County.
Well, what are the people in your district talking about right now? I mean, I've still got to think as much attention is being spent on some of these other ancillary issues, especially in the attack ads everybody's running, that at the end of the day, people are still voting with their wallet.
They are, and I got to tell you, this is the most positive experience knocking on doors and talking with people that I've ever had in any campaign, because usually when you talk to a Democrat, you're going to get one set of concerns and issues, and then you're going to go next door and you're going to talk to a Republican and you're going to get a totally separate group set of issues and concerns. It is unanimous across the board that the cost of living crisis, the inflation, and the border are what is on everyone's mind right now, and they're very angry about it. And I think that sets us up to have a change election this November.
And the border crisis really plays into every aspect of our life, whether we realize it or not. It's not just about the number of people coming into the country illegally, but the increase in crime, how it affects job availability, what it does to our healthcare system, what it does to our, as we've seen in the aftermath of Hurricanes Milton and Helene, our disaster recovery efforts, national security, healthcare, education. The fact that we're allowing 13 million, 12 million illegals into this country affects all of us, even up here in Ohio, far away from borders.
It does, and it's the money involved in all those things. You're right. It's having an impact on housing, healthcare, social services, you name it, and it's coming at the expense of the American taxpayers. Hundreds of billions of dollars being spent for people who are basically cutting the line and putting not only Americans, behind the eight ball, but also folks who have come here from other countries legally and are going through the channels to get visas or to work towards citizenship. It's a real poke in the eye. And what I see, I think what people are angry about is they're looking at their government and they're saying, why are you rewarding people who are not following the rules, punishing people who are following the rules, making us pay for that, and putting us last? And that's where the frustration is. And I think that's a very legitimate human frustration to have in this situation. And nobody has answered the question or been held accountable as to why we're in this situation to begin with. We know that illegal immigration has been a problem for a long time, but nowhere near what we've had over the last 4 years. Biden's averaged about 120,000 a month, which is ridiculous. I'm waiting for somebody to ask Kamala Harris or my opponent or Marcy Kaptur or anybody else, what exactly was your policy goal here? And what was your intended outcome when you flung open the gates of our country You told the border agents to stop enforcing immigration law and start processing people into the country. And, oh, by the way, we're going to give you them a voter registration form. What are you playing at exactly? And they don't have an answer. It's completely indefensible, which is why these candidates are hiding and trying to run as Republicans now.
Well, it's I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's got to be a logical reason that somebody somewhere knows as to why you would change what was working. And under Donald Trump, the system wasn't perfect. There were still people crossing our border illegally. But under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, we've seen, a 250% increase over the last 4 years,
right,
which is unacceptable. And we see what's happening, and we don't have to get into the dogs and cats part of this, but we see what's happening in towns like Springfield, where the administration is getting around the illegal immigration claims by saying, look, the Haitians that we relocated to your town of 50,000 people, the 20% increase in your city's population, that's a direct result of our policy. They're here legally. Well, they're here legally because you changed the rules. You allowed them to come in through an app. You allowed them to seek asylum and temporary status, and you granted that, not realizing the consequences that it would have.
Absolutely. It's a classic case of saying so makes it so. They've come in illegally, we're just going to say that they're legal, and therefore they're not the illegals. The American people can see this. They see with their own eyes, they hear with their own ears what is happening, and they're being told something completely the opposite. Again, it's a theme that we're seeing from the left, whether it's candidates on the ground running for Congress, or it's the presidential candidates, or it's just the talking heads out there to really gaslight people. The inflation that you're feeling, it's really not that big of a deal. You're doing fine. Joe Biden, for the last 4 years, he's been fine. He's running the country now. Don't worry about it. Kamala Harris, we wanted her off the ticket for 3 years, and now all of a sudden she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And now you've got candidates like my opponent and in your district up there, Marcy Kaptur, running around saying that they're going to secure the border. They're going to bring down inflation. They're going to reconnect people with the American dream and support our police. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what they've been doing for the last 2, 4, 6, 8 years, and in Marcy's case, 40 years or so.
40 decades, almost 40 decades, 4 decades, 40 years. We're talking to Kevin Coughlin. KevinCoughlin.com is his website if you want to learn more about him and help the campaign. What's the increase in illegal immigration doing in the Akron area and District 13 with regards to crime? I'm not going to point the finger at immigration as being part of the reason why we've got a crime increase here in Northwest Ohio, but we certainly have a gun violence issue. Is that part of the problem in your district?
We've not seen high-profile cases of crime related to illegals, but they are passing through, and our law enforcement are telling me that they're doing a lot of stops. They're seeing a lot of bad driving out there, but they're doing a lot of stops, and they're coming across, carloads, truckloads of people on their way, typically to the East Coast somewhere. They call it into immigration, and there's nothing they can do. They just kind of let them go. There's no reason to detain them. So they're frustrated that but we have not seen the kind of problems that you see in Colorado, in Springfield, in Nantucket, and other places. But it's coming. It's coming to every town where you have a lot of folks coming in at the same time and putting those stresses that you mentioned on earlier in those places. And creating real on-the-ground practical problems. But we're not quite there yet here in this district. What people know is that our taxpayer dollars are being used to finance all of this, to fly these people in, to fly them around, to house them, to provide health care, $2,200 a month, a cell phone, all the social services you can imagine. And meanwhile, we have homeless veterans who are in need. We've got people with mental health and addiction problems that need support. Obviously, when we have natural disasters, you see what happened in North Carolina and other places here in the last week or two. Again, Americans feel like they're paying the bill for this, and they're being forgotten and shunted to the side.
One, in my opinion anyway, one reason that we are seeing an increase in violence, I think it's partially related to mental health issues, which need to be addressed in this country, but it's also the result of the economy. If people had good paying jobs, people were able to afford bills, there wouldn't be, I don't believe there would be as much crime on the streets. And we're seeing higher gas prices again in the area. We're seeing higher grocery prices. Same thing that I'm sure you're seeing in District 13.
Yeah, and, particularly when you go to our larger cities where you have a lot of gang activity, the cities that are doing it well and and reducing crime and gang violence are cities where you have a lot of nonprofit organizations working in the community, giving young men an alternative and a better deal than gangs provide them. So it really takes everybody, all of society, and certainly a little bit of government, especially at the local level, to make that happen.
If you're in Congress, Kevin, what do you do? What do you work on to try to help combat the inflationary problem? I know Kamala Harris is talking about price controls. Congressman Mike Ruley owns a grocery store down in the Youngstown area. We talked to him a lot, and he, as a grocer, knows firsthand what that would do to our food supply if you start putting price restrictions on the food that's available.
Right. Look, subsidies and price controls and handouts are not the way to do it, especially if you're printing money to make that happen. It just exacerbates the problem. That is a Soviet-style communist approach to these problems, and it always throughout history has made things worse. Ultimately, the price increases that we're experiencing ultimately go back to government spending. You've got to stop the overspending. Government has got to get control of it. When you think about the ways that government raises money when it wants to spend, it either raises taxes, it borrows, or it prints money. And it's been printing money and borrowing like crazy over the last 4 years, especially if you look at the historical charts. And what you're doing, of course, is Economics 101. You are putting more money out into the system, chasing the same number of goods and services, and prices are going to shoot up at the grocery store, at the pump, on the car lot, obviously the housing market. There are things that we can do, especially, this isn't a congressional issue, but a local issue and a state issue, to address some property tax reform, because I think we've got a real problem, a runaway problem in Ohio with regard to that.
Everywhere in the state.
That's absolutely. That's making life a lot less affordable for a whole lot of people.
Kevin Coughlin on the Scott Sand Show. He's running for Congress in Ohio's 13th Congressional District. Look, it's another district that we need to win to retake control, to maintain a bigger majority in the U.S. House. You can help, you can volunteer, you can donate. KevinCoughlin.com. Just the same way in Ohio's 9th race with Derek Marin. We need to flip this district as well. KevinCoughlin.com. And Kevin, maybe next week I'll get you and Derek on at the same time. I think he went to UT. The two of you can make a bet on the Battle of I-75 next week.
That sounds good. I look forward to it. I really appreciate your help, Scott.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon.